Hi everyone and welcome to this video. This is going to be a video on the Grunfeld defense from Boris Avrock's book, and in his book he has two Grunfeld defenses, the dynamic and the solid variation. So I'm hoping to cover hopefully all of the dynamic variation in this video. So let's look at what the Grunfeld is. After d4 knight f6, c4 g6, g3, and then after bishop g7, bishop g2, we're seeing d5, and the line is c takes d5, knight takes d5, and then knight f3. So at this point we're 6 moves deep, and in this series I want to do I'm doing 10 moves deep for all the things, so there's quite a bit to get through, but let's have a look at it. Alright, the first variation I want to have a look at is c5, and it's quite a interesting variation because we play e4 taking the center, and the interesting part is after knight f6 we're playing d5. So yeah, the e4 pawn isn't hanging because of course, if the
check,
the queen a4 check. However, this leads to a subtle difference when we're looking at the castled variety. So it's quite a bit of logic, of course, behind that. But then after d5, which is a strong move,
check,
queen a5 check, and we're playing knight f to d2, of course, to protect this pawn as well. So that's very important to play the f knight for that reason. And then queen a6 is a little bit of an annoying move. White's still in an advantageous position and has a really good position out of this opening, but it just prevents castling. We play bishop f1, and we're 10 moves deep. And just also a quick note, knight f to d2 also had that double potency of protecting the pawn, so we're able to move the bishop now. A lot of the times in this variation we aren't castling, but still it's leading to very, very good positions for white. So alright, so that's the c5 variation. The next variation I want to have a look at instead of c5 is instead of c5 is just simply castling. And then as white we castle, we take the opportunity to castle, and then there's three main responses for black. So there's knight c6, which I want to have a look at first, and we're meeting that with knight c3. And then after knight takes c3, we're playing b takes c3, and then the main line's e5, and we're just reinforcing the d4 pawn with e3. And we're 10 moves deep here, sort of comfortable, logical, maybe more comfortable due to castling than the previous position, and still a solid advantage for white. Now the next position I want to have a look at is, sorry, I backed up a little bit too much here. So we just had a look at, from castles, we just had a look at knight c6. I want to look at the playing pawn to c6. Castles, white castles, of course. And then, so we just looked at that. I want to look at pawn to c6. We're taking the center again. So, this is something we're doing, of course, in a lot of positions, and no exception here. And then, after knight to b6, we're playing h3. This is an important move to prevent bishop g4, because, of course, this knight is important here. There's a fair bit of pressure, and black can mount pressure as well onto our d4 pawn. So if we played something else, we would likely have to play, let's just have a quick look, like say we just did a nothing move, bishop g4 isn't so good. We'd probably have to play e5 fairly quickly to shut out this bishop, and that's it's not particularly desirable. This move is important of h3. And then after knight 8 to d7, we're playing knight c3, and then black tries to do something with e5. Future moves we play in this position are b3 is a good move, reducing the squares for the knight. We don't really provoke we don't really exchange on e5. We don't accept this, but after an exchange we're probably recapturing with our knight. We'll have pieces in the center and a fairly or even more than fairly solid position. So now I want to have a look at another position of knight a6. So from here, back to this point. So castling, we just had a look at this one and this one. I want to have a look at now knight a. Of course, white castling again. Yep. So after knight a6, we're playing knight c3, and then there's a few continuations for black, but I'm gonna not go into them all. I'm gonna have a look at quite a common one of knight takes c3, and from that we're responding b takes c3. Black's here playing c5, and we're just putting our rook in the open file with rook b1. Future ideas here: bishop out, queen to d3 is often good, knight e5, stuff like that. So that's definitely a solid game for white. Now I want to have a look at the final variation after castling. So just over here, after castling for black and castling for white on the 7th move for black, the final variation is c5, and again we're taking the center, so we're seeing a recurrence of common moves here. And from this point, there's a branching point. There's two possible moves. I'll have a look over them both quickly, just to give us a better idea of a better feel for this opening. So there's knight b6 or knight f6. After knight b6, the arrow there just delayed a bit. After knight b6, we're playing d5. So we played this d5 move before, when, if you remember, when black moved to f6. These lines. When black moved to f6 from this position, but without castling, and we talked about how the e-pawn wasn't hanging because of the check. So after knight to b6, this d5 move we're playing when possible, and then after d5, black's playing e6, and we're simply playing knight to c3. So that's 10 moves deep, but we'll just have a quick look. We'd expect black to exchange, and it's leading to quite a natural position with an isolated pawn in the center, but a strong pawn and definitely a strong position. Now I want to have a look at the quick variation, so knight to f3 instead. Let's just go back to remind us where we are. So here after castles, we're looking at the castles variation, and then after c5, we were playing e4, kicking the knight. We just had a look at knight to b6. Quick look at knight to f6. We're playing e5, of course. We can't play d5 here, which we otherwise may, and that's because the king is no longer on e8, so we don't have this. We don't have this check, and the e4 pawn is hanging. So if we did that, of course, the e4 pawn's hanging. Pre-castling, it's not hanging. So here we're kicking the knight with tempo, and then after knight d5, we're simply playing d takes c5. This pawn we will lose after a maneuver like knight a3 and then knight takes c5, but we're still in a very comfortable position. This bishop isn't excessively active with this pawn here, and overall it's a very solid position. Okay, now I want to have a look at the final variation. So the final variation, if we go back here, so where we are at this point, the basic starts. So let's just remind ourselves where we are here. After d4, knight f6, c4, g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, d5, c takes d5, knight takes. After then knight f3, we've had a look at castles, and we've had a look at c5. I now want to have a look at knight to b6 as an option, and this is considered the main line by a lot of it's sort of widely considered the main line. And then after knight c3, knight c6, we're playing e3, reinforcing the d4 pawn, and from here black plays e5, and we're playing d5, kicking the knight. And then there's quite a few there's quite a few options here, and I'll just quickly touch on them all. There's knight e7, and we're playing e4. This e4 move, where getting this nice pawn formation is pretty standard. So we're doing that with the other option, knight b4. here we're playing e4 as well, and yeah, finally there's knight to a5, and here we're just castling, and that's because this pawn isn't attacked a third time, so it's attacked twice. And with the previous moves, so to here, they were both attacking the pawn, so this e4 move was necessary immediately. But yeah, with knight to a5, we're taking that time to play a more, I suppose, relevant move of castling. The final variation I want to have a look at is on the 8th move for black. Instead of playing e5, which we just had a look at, which we played d5, there's another move which is just castles, and after as white we castles, there's a couple options for black here on the 9th move, and I'll just have a quick look at them. There's actually 3 options, so there's e5, a5, and rook e8. Yeah, so there's only one move to have a look at for these for each variation. So for e5, we're playing d5 with a similar result to before, and to a5 we're playing b3, and that of course prevents a4 because we can simply take, and there's no recapture because the queens. Yeah, so just to show you. Yeah, so that b3 protects, or prevents, should I say, a4, and then the final move is, so take it back here, is rook e8, and to this we're playing the simple rook e1, putting a reinforcement on the e file. So let's just have a quick look at the summary of the dynamic variation. So we'll start from the beginning, and that's of course d4, our opening, then after knight f6, c4, we're seeing g6, we're playing g3 immediately, bishop g7, bishop g2, and then we're seeing d5, which is, yeah, of course, the Grunfeld, and then after c takes d5, there's knight takes d5, we're playing knight f3, and the variations we had a look at today were for the 6th move for black were c5, there was castles, and then a few variations within that as well. There was knight to b6 as a 6th move option, and those were the main ones. And of course within there was some variation. So I hope that gives you a little bit more confidence to play the dynamic variation, or just to enter the Grunfeld in general and have a good game and get into sort of some good positions. I may start with the King's Indian because it's probably the opening I'm having the most issues with. I just hope I can, later on YouTube reshuffle them, because I haven't even finished the Catalan yet. I've still got a couple more for that. But I definitely, I think next video I want to touch on the King's Indian, and then even also the Benoni system. The Benoni systems I want to have a look at it as well. So yeah, I'll touch on them all in kind of different orders, and then put it all together and try to get try to complete them all. But I hope that's I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to next video. Thanks very much.